Welcome, everyone. It's a little early for everyone. Well, it is for me anyway. Like, I was in the middle of about to folding my laundry, so I got my laundry right here with me. My clean laundry, not my dirty laundry. Uh, it's good to see everybody. Let's go to WFLA and see what they're saying, because so far, um, what we've got human remains that have been confirmed to be found, but uh, they have not been confirmed to be Brian's just yet. But apparently, they were found near items that Brian's parents have confirmed to belong to Brian. From what I understand, I'm still kind of shaky on all the details here, so we're gonna catch up on all this as we move forward. So let me pull this up real quick. Get out of here. Get out of here. All right. And
3 minutes before, not even,
now.
maybe a minute and a half to 3 minutes before we began this stream for our new Facebook Live audience, that there was another vehicle, another mobile command style vehicle that went into the Carlton Reserve. It was the biggest one we've seen yet.
It looks like they're using that tent as a way to cordon off the area because they're wrapped around a tree there. They come around the tent. It does not look like they need the tent to cover anything. It is simply a way, almost like a fence post, so that they can protect a particular area. And if we're going to do some presuming here, we can think that they have remains in one area and perhaps want to make sure that if bones were carried
That's
off,
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's out. Now, a lot of you guys are probably thinking the same thing I am. I'm wondering, because they're saying that these remains were found near where his Mustang was originally found. And the first thing I thought is, well, isn't that the first place that they looked? So why are they finding this stuff now? So that's kind of weird. But at the same time, there are other circumstances to be considered. I mean, we're talking about the Carlton Reserve here, which is a swamp. And in this swamp, there's all kinds of elements, one of them being a lot of alligators. I used to be a Florida resident myself, so I know there's a lot of alligators in that area. And if it was near water, it's possible that they weren't able to find anything in the water at the time. Now, if you know anything about alligators, what they tend to do is they tend to take their prey underwater and kind of stash their food under maybe a rock, coral, whatever. Well, not coral, because that's salt water, but anything that could be, lodged underneath the water, they'll try to stuff their prey under there so that they can kind of go back to it and nip at it. So yeah, Florida kitties are not a joke. Yeah, and if they're meth gators, then my man is not surviving. But now I'm really hoping that it's not him. Honestly, I mean, okay, let me be clear about that. Part of me hopes that it's him, because this would actually bring the family some closure, because luckily this is a case where the victim's body was already found. Her remains were already found. So Gabby's family, the Schmidts and the Petitos, were able to give her, a proper burial or what have you. So that closure there. But as far as you know, I mean, you guys know me on this channel. I'll take justice where I can take it. Justice is justice. I prefer justice via due process. But the thing is I think of a parent like Joe Petito, and of him as being the kind of man that would want to look Brian in the eye. He wants to face him. He wants Brian to be able to look him in the eye at some point. And if this is Brian, he's being robbed of that. And everybody else, the Schmitz, both the Schmitz and the Petitos, being robbed of this. So that's part that I don't like. If this is him, so that's the one thing that's making me hope that it's not him. Because at the same time, we're talking about a guy that if he was caught, let's face it, people, if he is caught, he's going to plead not guilty. He's going to try to fight it in every way that he possibly can. But I don't think so. I don't want to see the family go through the pain of a trial and having to look this dude in the face every single day and watch him try to lie and watch him try to make excuses. That's not exactly justice. So in the sense that it's Brian, then it is at least closure. And it's one step closer to moving on and moving forward. And if that's the case with this case, because I'm not going to keep dwelling on it and contributing to the media circus. The only reason that I've been going live about this as much as I have been is because we need to keep the word out there. We need to keep awareness as far as where Brian is, because we need him found. And why do we need him found? So that the family can get justice. So let's see what these guys are, what they have to say here.
Near a backpack that has been identified as something that would be consistent with something Brian Laundrie would have had.
There have been questions for weeks now. Who was going to be the person to provide the information or provide assistance, provide the break that this case needed to find Brian Laundrie? We've been talking about hikers on the Appalachian Trail. We were talking about trail cam video in Alabama and trail cam video
here
or sightings locally.
Yeah, Carlton
here.
Reserve.
There were people in Canada saying that looks like Brian. There were people in Mexico saying this looked like Brian. And all along, what's incredible to me, Walt, is that all along, the one who was able to provide perhaps the biggest break in this case is Mother Nature. Just by allowing these waters to recede,
I don't know about that.
To a level that these these new items
red, white,
have been discovered, and now we have the report that partial human remains have been discovered. But Mother Nature not dumping water here over the course of October, and yes, there's been precipitation.
They still hold the highest regard.
Not anywhere close to what we saw in September.
No.
October has been in large part a very dry month here in the Tampa Bay area, very large in part a dry month for Sarasota County, and Mother Nature not dumping all of this water, allowing all of that swampy wetland water to recede. Now we have these developments here today.
And that is the key. And I think a lot of other people had insisted to me personally, privately, hits on Twitter, on Facebook, insisted there was no, and again, maybe they're still right, but insisted there was no way Brian Laundrie was still in there, insisted that somebody helped him get out of the country. And again, let's point this out. Let's be very clear that we do not know if this is Brian Laundrie. We do not know this is Brian Laundrie.
And let me also remind everybody.
Yeah, keep that in mind, people.
Early on in
this
is
another thing
this is an inconvenient truth, but it's a truth.
I mean, what are the chances? What are the chances of it not being him? Better than you think. I mean, I realize that if it's if these remains were found where his personal belongings were found, I understand that. I get that. That's a huge coincidence. But you also have to keep in mind, people, this is Florida, and this is a Florida swamp. And the Florida swamp is a very, very common place for bodies to be disposed of. And a lot of bodies get disposed of in Florida. Florida is a very, very crime-ridden place. Doesn't matter what part of Florida you're in. People in Miami will go as far as driving that far up north to get rid of a body. I promise you that it is a very, very common thing to get rid of a body in a swamp and counting on alligators to destroy it for you. If not absolutely consume the evidence. So it's not an uncommon thing.
Minutes ago on Twitter, items of interest. These are the exact words of the FBI. Items of interest were located at the Carlton Reserve this morning in connection with the search for Brian Laundrie. An FBI evidence response team is processing the scene. That's what we're seeing live there. Thanks to
Sean B, I agree with you. I do too.
Investigative photographer, and the reserve is.
I hope so too. But like I said, to me, the way it works, the way that the crime community, like I stated in my last live, the difference between the real crime community and the true crime community is here in the real crime community, what we do is we want what the family wants. So it's not our place to dictate what justice is. It is Gabby's family's place to dictate what justice is, and it's our place to respect that. So in my personal opinion, if they accept this as justice, I'll accept it as justice. But I honestly, like I said, I don't think that anybody wants to see any in the Schmidt or Petito family. I don't think that anybody there actually wants to see this go to trial. And you know that since he lawyered up under all the circumstances that we're looking at here, since he lawyered up, since his parents clammed up, and they were completely uncooperative, I'm assuming his plan is to plead not guilty if it ends up going to court. And if it ends up going to court, what's going to happen is this family is going to have to deal with more and more and more, stress, with more heartbreak. They're going to have to relive things. They're going to have to hear evidence being presented. They're going to have to, hear some defense attorney, spew out a bunch of crap and excuses. And he's not going to have the guts to take the stand. He's not going to do that. So it's just going to be a whole lot of just dragging things out, taxpayer money being wasted. So I'm not sure if that's considered justice. Obviously, if he's ultimately convicted, sure. Yeah, if he spends the rest of his life in prison or ends up executed due to the death penalty, I'll take it. Whatever. But if he unalived himself and they have that closure and it turns out to be him, I'll take that too.
No doubt about that.
But if the body was underwater, well, then it rules out what kind of wildlife perhaps would have been able to have gotten to these remains.
Exactly.
And that's one scenario that is plausible as far as why it's partial human remains and not entire full human remains.
And not to get too gruesome, but obviously the partial is important because the part of the body would lead to a quicker identification. Although,
that's entirely true.
Although obvious, if there's a wallet out there, if there are clothes out there, if the backpack somehow holds a hint, we knew
honestly,
death,
if it is him,
with Gabby,
I hope that it wasn't intentional. I hope that it was a total meth gator. he tried to run for his life and lost. And this meth gator was like, hey, I'm working for Mother Nature, and this is for Gabby. So that's ideally for me. If that is him, that's how I would hope that he went out, was trying to hide, but you can't hide from Mother Nature.
Out there, they determined pretty quickly, it seemed like within hours, that they were not Brian Laundrie. In this case, these human remains prompted a lot of activity there, including Laundrie's parents coming out there, including
now, let's be
an
realistic
FBI
too here,
release,
folks.
one of the few FBI releases we've had in this.
Take before he's actually identified as Brian Laundrie? The only way is if they see his face, they can identify his face. I mean, because it takes time to do an autopsy. It takes time to do dental records and compare dental records to teeth that are found. It takes time. Like, it depends on how long he's been out here, how badly his remains have been decomposed or damaged by the elements of the swamp. So we may not get answers as far as the identity of these remains for quite some time. So just mentally prepare yourselves for that, guys. Now, that's another thing. Now, they could easily, if they find his fingers, if he has fingerprints in the database somehow, which I don't see how he does, because I don't think he has a police record. But if he has his fingerprints by some chance through any other means in some sort of database, and they can compare the fingerprints and match them up, then maybe we'll get answers fairly quickly, but I'm not going to hold my breath for that. Yeah, I mean, the belief is obviously that it's him. That's the belief, but the confirmation that it's him, we might have to wait quite a while for that.
There's no tree there. They wanted to cordon off an area around the white tent. We do not know what they're doing under the white tent. We don't know if that's where the remains are, or that's where they're analyzing the evidence that they found. So, and again, yeah, it is a thick stand of trees. And in that way, I guess it is lucky for the FBI, because they, obviously we would not want to show human remains live on TV or taped on TV either, or recorded on TV. So.
The tape is interesting because they've partitioned off this area and we don't know why. No. But it just could be to establish a large enough perimeter to be even to double check that they have the perimeter established and not contaminate.
And he's saying, I'm just going to say this. I hope he didn't unalive himself, and I hope that this is him. That if this is him, he was attacked by a gator or a panther while alive. Just saying. That's exactly my opinion as well. You and I are exactly on the same page on that.
Even though, as we've said, as many have said, there's no justice for Gabby Petito here, if that is Brian Laundrie, there still is an open case that will be closed. And at some point, some of that information will be public and we'll know more. But this is still a crime scene, so it makes sense. You would cordon it off, and maybe even, to keep officers away, and to be able to watch a particular area.
We don't even know the details of the human beings
or no one goes in that area.
It could just
because at this point, you don't want animals in there either, just in case there are remains scattered in that area.
It could just be a toe.
Well, before we go split screen, let's just go full screen so you guys can see the entranceway to Myakkahatchee. There you can see
the bottom part of a jaw.
Members of the public who they can't walk in. They're going to be stopped by law enforcement if they try to walk into Myakkahatchee. But this story has attracted people from all over, from folks all over the country, and they have descended here on Sarasota County. They've descended here on Northport, Florida, the Northport area.
We know it's attractive.
And they are, some of them are local people. Some of them have come from far and wide. But this is, and if the camera pans over to the left, you'll see just every media outlet under the sun, literally under the sun.
Oh yeah, and I forgot about his tattoos. Yeah, I can't
all
believe
of
I
their
did
cameras
that.
are pointing.
But yeah,
in the direction
if a part of his remains
Riverfront,
happen to have
Myakkahatchee
tattoos
Environment Park,
and they match the
and
description
we
of
have
Brian's
the,
tattoos,
of course, the chopper in the air. Ooh,
then that could
some,
be used to
that's a better
identify and
angle that
confirm
Jim
that
just
it's him.
got. Okay, so there's some of the vehicles that are there in the area underneath the trees. That's a good shot, and just some of the law enforcement officials that are now working this scene.
I
Again,
agree with you,
examiner's
Nicole
office has been
Venditti.
called.
That's why I'm hoping
multiple.
That's why I'm absolutely hoping that
agencies here in Florida have been called.
If it is him,
let's not forget the Pasco County Canine Human Detections Unit.
He got
is also here.
Reverend,
and if
like
listen,
with Bear,
if there are partial human remains,
Bear just totally
that
just
there's the chance that there are of course
decided to have his way with him
out there somewhere, and having the canines
y'all ever
present
see the Reverend, the
to
Revenant,
try and track down that scent. That's particularly
with,
advantageous.
With
we were talking about wildlife earlier. We were talking about the chances that the remains were.
I mean, that bear had
the target of Florida wildlife, but we don't know. We don't know. All we can go by is what we're seeing here in the area that has been
solace
taped off by law enforcement and
the thought of some bear or a gator, even
led
just totally like.
It is,
and even better, a meth
reflecting
gator.
again on what the FBI
Florida meth gator
tweeted now about an hour ago. There were items of interest in the Brian Laundrie case. Brian Laundrie's parents out there earlier today, and now and the speculation about why they were there. There's a lot of speculation this morning, and then of course we find out.
Because if it was some random hiker and they recognized him and then unalived him and then just took off and didn't say nothing, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be mad because that's gonna be a whole other investigation.
Has not said anything about this case for quite a while.
Come on, man.
So that again, it's speculation, but it leads you to believe this is not just any sort of find. And there is a backpack down there somewhere, a backpack that we're told had things that would be consistent with what Brian Laundrie might have. And I want to take stand of trees is where the white tent
this is me. Activity
is.
If they ever catch that bear or gator, I'm there.
Think about it's a much clearer view. And the law enforcement might not want that at this point because we do not know exactly what was found. Just the report is human remains and a backpack with items that are that are consistent with what Brian Laundrie might have. So, and perhaps I mean, JD,
I don't even know if they got
sense
that there.
Is why
I know they got panthers though.
The parents would have gone out there this morning.
I know there's panthers. There's a lot of bears out here. Like
the parents being there, the developments that occurred today. These are again, these significant developments that so many people have been waiting for, but I don't know if it's the exact development that a majority of the public was hoping that they would actually learn to be true. And what I mean is that there were so many people, Walt, so many people that thought that the most direct avenue, the most direct way to get justice for Gabby was to find Brian Laundrie alive.
By the definition of justice, yes. Either way, I think, sadly, a young life, 22-year-old's life ended.
Keep repeating this, guys, because
what many have said
I'm not
would be one of the worst.
100% sure with that. I want him found alive. I want him to be. I want him to be held accountable and have to face consequences the right way. I do, but like I said, if this works out as closure for the Schmitz and the Petitos, I'll take it, man. I will take it because I do not believe that Brian Laundrie would ever take accountability for actions. I do believe that he would actually try to plead not guilty and put this family through the torture of a trial. And I'll be relieved if they get to avoid that. I'll be honest. I'll be relieved if they get to avoid that.
Here.
What in the hell?
Jim, by any chance, did you catch, and I'm going to bring up your mic here, by any chance, did you catch on Powerline Road there, was that Pasco County?
It may have
Power
been,
Line Road goes all the way
it's hard
down to
tell. It
Broward
was
County.
definitely two sheriff's vehicles, and I'm not sure about this black vehicle. It's either
Is that a
FBLE
coroner's
or
vehicle,
FBI,
perhaps?
I think.
That could be a
I'm
coroner's
not really
vehicle.
sure.
Oh, there
These
it is. Okay,
vehicles are sheriff's
Jim, there you
vehicles,
see it. There's K9, and that's Pasco.
How do you
Yep.
know that,
So
Ramon
that's
Casanova?
Yeah,
that's
that's
How
the
do you know that?
K9 unit.
That is
So,
the K9
Yep.
Human Detections Unit with Pasco County. Thank you, Jim.
Jim, has that? Can Jim hear me?
I don't think you can.
Okay, I'm just curious if that is new. Is that vehicle been there a little while? Or did it just get there?
So that vehicle arrived a few hours ago, and we know because we had confirmed that Pasco County, just like last week, that Pasco County was asked to brought in their canine human detections unit.
Yeah, I'm being swatted.
And there it
No, I'm
is
just
on
kidding.
the scene. And then so here's another vantage point now. This showing all of the law enforcement vehicles that are at the scene inside the Carlton Reserve now. So take this for what you will. Some of them are going to be marked vehicles. Others are going to be unmarked vehicles. Clearly that black trailer there, that is an unmarked vehicle. There you can see, I think that's the Northport Police Mobile Command Unit. There you can see a police tent there. That's the volunteer law enforcement vehicle that we saw enter about a few hours ago. Northport Police SUVs. There's the Lee. I think that's the Lee County Sheriff. This is now interesting because this is all of the vehicles that we saw enter on the ground shot. This shot, we saw all these vehicles come in over the last several hours, one by one, trickle in here to the Carlton Reserve, and now they're here inside the reserve itself. So, folks, we are refueling.
I wonder if all those people are like YouTubers.
And the reason, and we'll let everybody know the reason as to why we're sending Eagle now. We aren't
and I
low
wonder
enough
if
on
the
fuel
YouTubers
to
that decided to go
necessitate
out and just like
a refueling trip.
yell at Brian
However,
Laundrie. I
we
wonder
do
if they
need
took the time to come
aren't
out here
just
and
a live
cover
streaming
this.
platform. We also, of course,
the
we have
answer
our
that's
newscasts
rhetorical
on
because I know the
WFLA
answer
News
is
Channel
no.
8. We are your NBC station in Tampa, Florida, serving the Tampa Bay area. So Eagle 8 HD has to ground itself to fuel for 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Yes, we have a lot of newscasts here on your NBC station, 8 on your side, WFLA
Well,
News Channel 8 in Tampa,
but
Florida.
Canine Rescue,
And
that's
so
not,
it's
that
just
doesn't
about
exactly
being able to reach our
apply.
television audience. In
Unless
addition
I'm misunderstanding your comment. You're saying this will be just like Watts if he's dead. We still want answers to what happened, only closure, and I think that's what so many people want, answers. But Watts wasn't. There was no concern of whether or not Watts would be dead. Watts was arrested immediately. Yeah, I mean, he did a TV interview and people thought he was lying, and then they pretty much placed him under arrest because they found the sheet or whatever near the oil tanks. And I mean the Watts case was as open and shut as it gets, pretty much, so yeah, I don't know if this is a fair comparison to that. You're welcome, Gemini. Thanks for being here.
But now we found out last seen on the 13th, that's a Monday. That's also the Monday that Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's mother, held that just a teary-eyed, a very sad news conference, asking for help to find her daughter. That's sad to think back that there was hope at that point.
And this Larry
she was
idiot
still alive.
from the
she had been
Maya
reported
case
missing on the 11th, and little did we know she had been dead, according to the FBI,
he
for about
also
12 to 13 days.
Said his GPS on the way
now
back because he got lost,
from
supposedly.
sometime that short
Go back and watch
between the 27th
Annie
and the 30th is when we believe that Gabby Petito died,
on that,
and now we are.
It's
since
unbelievable.
then, we are
first of all, considering that
exactly
case, like I wasn't following that case
2 months.
About as up to date as anybody else can get, due to the fact that the press conference that Annie covered yesterday was extremely informative. It was one of the most informative press conferences that I've ever heard regarding a case. So I found that to be pretty interesting. And there's a lot of details that they shared with us, a lot of details that law enforcement normally does not share with us. But Larry Millette is under arrest, and he's in custody. And now it's just a question of finding Maya's body. I think, is it Maya or Maya? I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. I don't mean any disrespect. But yeah, and there was a lot of press covering that, and people wanted justice, you know. Yeah, a real example of missing white girl syndrome going on there. Idiots say stuff like that. Yeah, the whole community wanted justice, man. People from all over the country want justice for Maya. So it's just ridiculous, these things. And I probably shouldn't bring that stuff up, but it just makes me mad that, you know, it's to minimize the human condition, that so many of us are good people who really just want justice for people, no matter what happens, regardless of who they are, as far as race or gender or anything like that. What we want is justice for crimes that are absolutely and totally unjustified. The bottom line is, just like this is that's a DV issue. It's absolutely a DV issue. And that's what the focus needs to be, period. So it's, you know, for you know, a news source that decides to create that sort of agenda is infuriating to me. The same news source that straight up lied about Joe Rogan and him taking horse dewormer to beat COVID, you know, or claiming it's I mean, don't they think that's going to get disputed? And that's just when it comes to the things that, when for us trying to get to the truth, and truth leads to justice, people. There's no way around that. Truth leads to justice. So when you start to take matters, you know, you start to take away from the focus of truth, well, then you're making it harder to get justice. You know what I mean? You're just doing that. There's no way around that. And that's why it makes me so mad. Like, we don't need those kind of smoke and mirrors, man.
And was you know, rooted in that, and because it reminded her of her daughter, it reminds us of friends we've had. So that connection of somebody who put themselves out there, telegenic. So we have that connection, and then of course many of us see those videos after this becomes a missing persons case and then a homicide case. But I think that connection, and then of course, you know, many of the commenters on the stories I've posted, many have said they are also. I don't
know, man. Are you asleep right now? We're trying to figure that out, Brian.
So I think all those things kind of have come together to attract a worldwide audience, for the story. It's remarkable.
Let's get to some of this is the previous Eagle 8 HD video that we were showing you earlier, and we also have the live feed to show you here as well.
I'm not trying to make anything
right
political.
Outside
I want to be clear. I'm not talking about politics here, folks. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about truth. I'm talking about honesty coming from the media, and why it's important that the media is honest. Instead of having an agenda, they should take responsibility, or accountability for the responsibility that they have to distribute the truth. Because the reason why the truth is important is so that we're closer to getting justice. So that we're closer to, I mean, the reason why we have a right to be informed is so that we can help ourselves and each other as a society. It's very, very important. And we need news sources to be honest, you know, and we need news sources to focus on the things that actually matter. And that's not to say that racism isn't a problem in this country. I'm saying it absolutely is, but to make a DV issue to the point to where somebody ends up murdered and then turn it into something about race and minimize it because of the victim's race, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's a problem. It's not okay.
Going back here a couple of weeks, or really a month ago now, when they found the body at Carlton Reserve,
Right.
that was somebody else. They put it out immediately, very quickly. They said, "We found a body. Don't freak out. We found a body. Right. It is not Brian Laundrie." I believe, if I remember correctly, it was somebody who had took their own life at the Carlton Reserve.
And
yeah, he's talking about another body that was found at the Carlton Reserve.
Another thing to point out: the FBI did not offer a news release or a tweet.
Keep in mind, people,
in this case,
this is Florida.
The FBI
Do not
tweeted
underestimate the fact that this is Florida. You know,
we're located at the Carlton Reserve.
Bodies are found in the swamp,
in connection with the search for
or
Brian
not
Laundrie.
Found in the swamp all the time.
Roberta actually experienced when Brian returned home. He did drive the vehicle home. How did we get from that point to the point that we're at now? And I am just curious, will Chris and Roberta Laundrie ever explain to the world what happened? Will they ever provide answers? We've had one family that has not been shy,
because they'll be incriminated if they do.
I met with them during their visit here to Florida. What was that? A week and a half ago.
I'm hoping that the FBI or law enforcement
have been
Josh
very
from the
open.
Dad Challenge podcast earlier, he touched on this because he's really focused, and I agree with him. But his life was focused a lot on whether or not Chris and Roberta Laundrie will be held accountable for their part in any of this. But we don't really know what their part is. We all suspect what their part may be, but we don't really know what it is. So, but based on I'm not counting on them in the slightest bit to do anything to help the Petitos or the Schmitz in any way, shape, or form if they haven't already, because all of a sudden their heart's not going to change and be in the right place. No. And if they believed, if this is Brian Laundrie and it is a result of him unaliving himself, well, then what we're gonna why didn't they come forward in the first place, or in the first place help with the search? Why didn't they make statements saying, Brian, if you're out there, please don't do what we think you're gonna do? You know, their behavior is the most bizarre out of everyone here. So I'm not in any position to believe that they would act any differently moving forward. So what I'm counting on is if they are, if they can be implicated in anything, I'm hoping or I'm counting on law enforcement to find some sort of evidence and then charge them. But I don't see them coming forward and volunteering any new information. I just don't see it. I'm hoping they do. I'd love it if they did, but I'm not counting on it.
Solve crimes, and they love headlines because I think their funding, I'm sure, is fine, but they need to prove that funding. They love the headlines. So do they respond to the public outcry for information? And if this indeed is Brian Laundrie, do we have
confirmation that those remains were found in the water? I mean, I haven't heard any confirmation that that these remains are found in the water. But it could be just something that I missed. What, guys? What is your problem? Panda, come on, you can get up here on top of my clean laundry. You're okay. Panda. That Panda. Panda's too busy looking outside. I don't know, but I'm going to unmute it now. Find out.
Yeah. All right, folks. 4:30. 4:30. There's going to be a statement to the media, the FBI, and we have seen this come up in the comment section. Okay. We know that there's been talk of this. It's now confirmed. It is 100% confirmed. The FBI has put out a press release. They are going to be making an announcement at 4:30 Eastern time. That is 1 hour and 5 minutes from now. We're going to be live on WFLA, and we're not going anywhere.
I will make sure to be live. Even if I log off before then, I will make sure to go live and cover that.
And they say that they are going to be reading or releasing a statement. And I'm going to just
see what bugs me.
Covering
like I'm hoping it'll be more information, but what I'm thinking is just going to be a cleanup of all the rumors, and they're going to say, yeah, remains were found, and they're just going to tell us a bunch of stuff that we already know, and just kind of cut the fat of, being the rumors surrounding it. So, but I'm not going to hold my breath for any solid information that confirms whether or not it's Brian, because, like I said, we don't know. I mean, hopefully it is. Hopefully they have some confirmation, and that's great. Because let's face it, they haven't held press conferences this entire time. When any of these potential updates take place, so it tells me that there's something big. But at the same time, don't do it, Cherry K. At the same time, I'm not going to hold my breath. You know what I mean? Because we have no idea what the details or circumstances are as far as the remains that were found. Lori Dozer, there's other ways. Fingerprints, if his fingerprints are in a database, if his tattoos can be identified, or his, if his, we just don't know the details of the remains that have been found. All right.
The Fort DeSoto camping trip. It was so normal to do that. So normal. If your family is dealing with crisis, going camping isn't really high on your priority list.
Right.
And I've talked about this at great length on previous streams, and I'm reiterating some of the comments that I have made previously.
Very strange.
It just always, when people ask me, JB,
and we've seen Stranger
that particularly just doesn't feel right to you, and
we've seen Stranger. And this is a prelude to what I'm about to say. I mean, what about the possibility that his parents helped him? What if he unalived himself and his parents facilitated this and helped him go through with this in some way, shape, or form? We've seen Stranger. The very, very first live stream I ever did, the very, very first one, was about a girl who unalived herself, and her mom basically helped her. Her mom and her doctor basically helped her, and justified it because she was a victim of SA, repeatedly. And none of those incidents are connected. She just had the worst luck on the universe that she just kept continuing to be assaulted, and it put her in a what is wrong with me? Why does this keep happening to me type of depression. And this is a girl, I believe she was in Sweden. I think, God, it was so long ago that I did that live stream. But I'm telling you, it was my very, very, very first live stream. And you know, I'm telling you, it's not unheard of. My reason for bringing that up is it is not unheard of for a parent to assist in this in some way, shape, or form.
It's a great point. It's a question we may never know the answer to. Do they actually ever come forward and tell us? They've been obviously, stressful situation for them to be in, obviously beyond stressful. They know Gabby, they know Brian, they may know what happened, but you know that the camping trip to me is less of a mystery only because I know how popular that campground is.
But why go camping? But why go camping if there was something terrible that occurred, especially if you're Brian Laundrie?
Maybe they didn't know. Right. Well, right.
If you're Brian,
right,
you're going camping and eating s'mores and staring out at a beautiful sunset.
Name, but
you could take a dive into his mind and
her name was Noah Papa,
and realize that not everybody has the same conscience.
And you guys,
we were talking yesterday, Walt, and I wish that you had been part of our stream yesterday. I was talking with Josh Benson about how, in some cases of extremely, in the minds of a person, and again, we're speaking in generalities here, we're not speaking about Brian Laundrie, but in the minds of somebody that commit an extremely violent crime, that some minds will automatically revert to straight denial and will create and fabricate a reality within their mind that they did not occur such a heinous act, or did they not commit such a heinous act.
Well, I get the question a lot from various stories we cover, and people will ask, how could somebody do that? And I always tell them the same thing. You have a conscience. And again, I'm speaking in general terms. We don't know anything that Brian did other than allegedly use Gabby Petito's credit card. We don't know anything else. And sadly, we may never know. We will only be able to suspect. There will never, this case, if this is Brian Laundrie's remains, will never be tried. And the information, we may have to pry it out of the FBI. We don't know. But again, people who commit crimes, people who commit strangulations, whoever did it, that is a personal crime where you are staring at the victim and you are doing that for what amounts to 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes, and it's horrifying to imagine being on either side of that, and then to imagine anybody, whoever it was, being capable of doing that. It's not. Thankfully, it's not normal, and that type of person could very well not feel guilt. You don't know. We don't know. So maybe the parents didn't know. If the parents knew and still went out for s'mores, now we've got a whole nother problem. But at that point, the date of the camping trip was the 6th or 16th?
6th to the 7th, yeah.
6th to the 7th, and Gabby Petito is not a missing person yet. But we suspect at that point the Laundries had already received phone calls from the Petitos and the Schmitz at that point, asking, where is Gabby? Do we believe that at that point?
Which they did not respond to.
Had that not happened yet?
Say that again?
Absolutely.
Do we believe on the 6th that
blew them off?
Around that time frame, Brian comes home on the 1st. Do we believe between the time of the 1st and the camping trip, 5 days later, do we know from the Petitos and the Schmitz that they received phone calls that they called the Petitos?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, they had already called and not gotten any answers.
They were calling, texting, trying everything that they could to get an answer.
Troubling, extremely troubling.
And they got no response.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Even hey, we'll call you back.
It's not logical.
Not
even,
even,
doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Just completely.
For those of you just joining us,
totally
4:30 Eastern time, the FBI calling a press conference for 4:30 Eastern time, and it's here at Myakkahatchee, and they are going to announce something. We don't know exactly what they are going to announce to the world, but they are going to give us an update on what has transpired here today. And I go back to what I had said previously. As far as constants in this case, I have always said that if there was one constant in this case, Walt, that it was to expect the unexpected.
Who knows?
It seems as if
Who
at
knows what
every
this
turn
lady's
throughout
yelling
the
about in the
story
background.
that there was just oddities that would occur. And that's one of the reasons why this story has just captured the attention of so many people around the world, is because there are so many moments throughout the timeline that just don't add up, that don't feel right, that are unexpected. And so with that one constant being a theme in this, or that theme being a constant in this case, I have no idea what we are going to learn at 4:30, but I know that we're going to be live here on WFLA Now.
Damn it, there's
Kennedy
only one
Joe,
of me.
hashtag KJB. So I'm late.
One and only, baby.
Do we think that the
One
remains
and
are
only.
new or old? And first and foremost, just relatively speaking here, just from a
And that's a
terminology
gremlin,
standpoint,
Jerry, by the
new
way.
old
You don't
is
feed
new,
gremlins after
like,
midnight. It has nothing to do with trolls.
12 hours
Right.
new, or
We don't
3
know.
days
Your pop
new?
We don't
culture,
know.
correct.
We don't know.
We don't know how long they've been there. All those things, by the way, I don't suspect we'll know. We could very well know
madness,
that,
like, stop it.
that at 4:30, something along those lines. But if it's the FBI talking, it's going to be very basic. It's going to be 1 or 2 paragraphs at the most. And I don't think at this point they're not going to offer any speculation for how long the remains were there, because they more than likely do not know, unless there's a note. I guess there's that, right? There could be a note. And we know, and where
And it
we know
hasn't been
exactly
confirmed that there was
how
a
long
note.
they've been
Somebody
there, but
was
I'm going to
there was a lot of
say
people saying that
we're not going to know
in-
new or old for a while. We are going
there's
to
a lot
have
of
a
people saying that
suspicion of who it is.
in Josh's chat. You know, we don't do that in real crime, people. We don't do that in real crime. That's true crime stuff. You know, unless you have confirmation of something, please don't share it. Unless you know for a fact that something is fact, don't share it in the chat, please.
That would just be to carry cash.
if there's a
and
note
And how
maybe-
long have the remains been there? I mean, that's the other point, because now what does it look like? It's gruesome to imagine, but yeah, it's a really good question, but it's one of the ones we can't really answer right now.
Melissa Hoyt, hashtag KJB, hashtag Walt. Do we know if this is an area that has been searched previously?
Great question.
Of course, this area has been searched, but I bring up Melissa's for a second to ask this question.
I'm interested to see.
And it's
what
not a question that we
to
can
say
answer,
here
but it's a
about
question that is on my mind. Did they search this area in September when the water was considerable? And were they stepping right around this area
That's what I'm saying.
at the time?
That's what
or
I'm
were
saying.
they within 10 feet, 100 feet of this spot, and they had no idea what they were actually on or near because of the water?
We got to spread it.
Right.
I'll go. It's got to
We
be.
know they had the boats. We know they
All
had
right.
the
Shut
swamp
up,
boats,
Jerry.
whatever you call
Dive
them.
teams, they had
Dive teams.
sonar in there.
It's interesting that it's water's involved, and they had dive teams, which makes you wonder, did they know something earlier about Brian that made them think to look in water? Although that area, didn't we hear from Allison Henning that did we hear from police that the area is 75% water?
But
now,
didn't they
keep in
have
mind,
divers?
I think it was
in the
75%
first
water
place?
at the time.
right.
'Cause
Right.
One
And
thing that
was a
I
month
heard
ago.
somebody say
Right.
When we had a
Month
very wet
before
September.
in
We did.
Josh's
So,
chat
and,
was like, you know, they searched, you know, but there was water there, so they didn't search underwater. But why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? If they're searching, why? You know, they had divers, didn't they? I heard they had divers. I don't know for sure.
The first day they searched, which was a Saturday.
Yep.
They were on the Northport side.
Yep.
And again, they said Carlton Reserve, but the two areas are connected. They're adjacent to each other. So was this the area they initially
What are
went
these
to? We
vehicles
don't
pulling
know
up?
that. But again, if it's underwater,
Oh,
you
thanks,
miss
D.
it,
Marie.
right? And I don't think dogs are as
I
effective
appreciate it.
if something is in water.
Submerged.
And then we also
No,
don't know
you
how long
appreciate
he's
it.
been there. We don't know, or he or whoever that is. We don't know how long the remains have been there. So
As we lose our camera shot here for just a moment, we'll show you some video from earlier, the tent video from earlier. Melissa, thanks a lot for your question, because it's a thought-provoking
Great
one.
question.
And it makes you just wonder, but this area isn't that far from the entrance, and it isn't that far from where the Ford Mustang convertible was found, which, again, can't read too much into it, but I'll say this. It is entirely possible that the remains have been there for some time. And again, I point out that Mother Nature had a significant role here. The water's coming down to a point that where you're not stepping even in mud. It's very dry on the ground there at the Carlton Reserve now.
Yeah, I wonder
at
when the last
Myakkahatchee,
time it was.
and
The last
it
time it
exposes
rained
what
in
was
that area.
underneath the surface of the water out of view for the officers.
Because
and
it's
the
actually
teams that
been
were
here
searching
in
Myakkahatchee.
Tennessee. It's been raining.
JB, do we
on and
know?
off a
I just
lot.
got this question. It's a great question. My answer was I hope so, and
Since
also we
yesterday,
better.
it's been
Do
sunny
we know that we are going to
consistently,
have this news conference live? Do we have that capability? Do you know? I was going to ask our assignment desk, just since we're fluid here, because I think it's we would hope so, correct? Or is it out of Denver? No, it's going to be there. It's going to be at this scene, correct?
It's at Myakkahatchee. And I would imagine that if they are doing a press
Florida,
conference
I still
for the
can't
press,
say all these
they're going to do it in
Native
a spot
American
that
names
is
that
available to the press. But it's worth noting. Now we got time. It's 50 minutes away. There hasn't been a makeshift podium set up. There hasn't been an area where or there is.
Let's do this while we're waiting.
What you'll see is the media come
for
together.
another hour.
Even
let's
photographers with
do
different
this, 'cause
networks
Cherry-
and different
Cherry
media
and Mr.
affiliates.
Harlan's
And what they will do
tales
is
of
somebody
history's
will
famous
provide a
burglars.
makeshift stand or podium.
Do not
that
believe
will-
it is
Light
Brian.
stand a lot
Type
of
of
times.
one.
Yep, and
And
what
duct
that will
Brian,
do.
type of two. If
Yes,
you
the
do
duct
not,
tape is key. And what they will
Mics
do.
are wrapped on duct tape.
Walt and I have been at these press conferences, and you'll see the media kind of come together because they want to. It's really actually just because they want to have the best mic placement. You know, when you'll see a press conference at an area like this, and you'll see it looks like there's I don't know, 50 to 60 microphones all like piled onto one spot, and you're thinking, why don't they just use one microphone? It's because they don't have the technological capability to do one microphone.
Right.
It's all of these microphones together. And that area is likely being formed right now. But I'll tell you what, there's got to be a media liaison there at the scene to organize this press conference and say it's going to be had here.
The news release was written by the Florida contact to the FBI.
FBI Tampa, right?
Yeah, FBI Tampa. Keep in mind, the lead investigators here are the Denver office of the FBI, and that's who we have been contacting.
My buddy's in Tampa right
for
now.
information leading up to these
But
days. Is
he's not
the
a-
Denver office of the FBI, and that's where the tweet that said they had found items of interest in the Laundrie case that came from the Denver FBI. And keep this in mind as well: the FBI has not confirmed anything about remains. That is from a source to NBC News and Pete Williams. So we don't know what we're going to get at 4:30. We can only sort of assume what we'll get. But again, as JB pointed out, it's been a crazy story with a lot
Again,
of twists
type of one
and
if you
turns.
think that those
Very
remains
few
belong to
items on
Brian
that
Laundrie.
timeline. If
Type
we
of
think
two,
back
if
just
you
what
don't think it's
6
him.
weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, I got to do the math. 6 weeks ago, we didn't even know who Gabby Petito was. A few people did because they were following her blog, right?
Yep.
We didn't know these names, and now they've been part of these thoughts and all these developments. For a while, it was a development a day, and it slowed down.
I'm seeing
to
more
a
twos
crawl
than ones
over the weekend, where there weren't many stories at all. There were very few. Even nationally, there
but why
were
would they
very few
schedule a
media
press
stories
conference,
with
though?
the Laundrie
You know
case.
what
It
I
had been probably the slowest
They do a
weekend,
press
right?
conference for the last guy.
Since the case broke, and now we have this a mere 3 days later.
There were people that were chiming in saying this case is officially a cold case and it's time to. And I received a lot of messages from people saying, JB, it's time to start paying attention to other missing person cases. And believe me, now let's make this clear. I serve the Tampa Bay area, and that's my coverage area, and that's what I'm told and directed and assigned to focus on. And believe me, we're ready to jump on any missing persons case. But that's not new for us. That's the thing. I'll make this clear. We've been covering missing persons cases all the time. This one just captured the public attention, captured Twitter sphere and social media in a way that few ever have, if any ever have. This was the missing person case that has received the most attention that I've ever seen in modern day journalism. I've never seen
no
anything
doubt.
like
And
it.
I think when you talk about modern day journalism, it is a very visual medium now. Newspapers are dying.
Yes.
Newspapers everywhere are dying, laying people off. Organizations like this are growing, and it's all based on pictures. TikTok is pictures, Twitter is pictures,
Instagram,
and
pictures.
right. And people have criticized us, and
Rude
by
to
the
say
way,
what, Sherry
we're
Thomas?
big boys and we can take it. And I think the criticism is deserved. Do we cover every single missing person case? Not necessarily. There's criteria for us, right? We do not generally handle certain missing person cases, but in this case, if I'm telling you, this case had the visual element right away. We saw these people in 3 dimensions talking, smiling together. This very telegenic couple that seemed so happy. And then we also have again modern technology, the body cam video
They
from
have had a lot of time to
am I
come
going
to terms.
God,
Plus,
these dates are
pretty
are
whacked
in
in
my
the head
mind.
anyway.
What
That's a
date
good
was the
point.
body cam? August. Oh boy. Anyway, the body camera video.
I'm bringing up my timeline
and
just because
the
I
body
don't want to
camera video?
misspeak. I've misspoken.
Body
in the
I don't
camera
know.
past.
video where we see this
I don't
guy
know.
that became the person of interest and the suspect in the credit card case. That just doesn't happen. If we see, we have surveillance video of suspects before, but I bring up Whitey Bulger again.
So Edwina's asking, do I think that it's him or not? Well, I don't think. The part of me that doesn't believe it's him is because I don't think that he's the type to unalive himself. I don't think that he has the testicular fortitude that it takes to do that. So I don't see them hiring an attorney if they didn't plan on fighting this in court. So I just don't see that happening. But at the same time, considering the area where they found him, considering that it's near, it's very close to where his personal belongings were located, then that's a big deal. So I'm honestly torn here. I don't know. I can't say one way or the other as far as a solid opinion goes.
Ending in death and destruction of a family. So I think that there's a conversation, to be had with and I think it starts with Gabby Petito's family, and others are going to join in on that conversation. And I'm very curious to see exactly how policymakers in this country, and I've heard some different ideas and concepts get brought forward, and some very interesting ideas as to how to prevent something like this in the future. They're fascinating conversations. I look forward to covering them and being even part of those conversations if people ask. From the
all over
perspective.
Florida swamps.
But that's a conversation now that is absolutely on the fast track.
So there's just human remains all over the place. Then
thousands
of
families out there.
Sounds like a ridiculous statement, but yeah.
Information on what happened to their loved one, and they deserve that information.
Florida's a big place. A lot of crime happens in Florida. A lot of organized crime happens
in the
Florida.
media covering that particular case. Not to say that
it's not uncommon to dispose
an
of
overwhelming amount of missing person cases that don't receive media attention. But there's a conversation to be had, and I'm very much looking forward to where it goes from here.
And there, I will also say that the other part of this is also the domestic violence conversation, because we know this is a case of domestic violence. We know a strangulation is, that doesn't necessarily have to be domestic violence if she did not know the suspect, but we do know that this was a couple that had some issues, and we saw those, and that conversation is important. You talk about prevention. Sure, we can talk about preventing missing persons cases or finding people faster. That's great, and money helps, and that foundation will help. But also the awareness, of how to
the killing
help a
fields
friend
is more of a
who
phenomenon.
may be dealing with
in Texas,
a bad relationship.
It's just crazy
too, and I think that's another piece of this.
It's such a common place where they just
it's
find bodies.
I look forward to finding out, like the rest of the world, finding out what's going to happen here at 4:30. Okay, so let me explain. And so some commenters used hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyWalton, brought this to my attention. I didn't get a chance to animate it here
Again,
on screen, but I can tell you that there is now,
guys. This is
like
a
clockwork,
DV issue.
right as I uttered it. I think
this
about
is the
45
reason
minutes
why
ago,
this case
a temporary flight
needs
restriction,
to get the
TFR, has
attention
been
that it
issued.
gets,
That is the
because you have to
FBI working in
understand
tandem with the
that,
FAA to establish a
you have to
TFR
understand
over
the
this area.
seriousness of DV
There is
and
no
how far
longer
it can
going to
go.
be
So
aerial
it's really, really
coverage
important
of
that we bring
the area
awareness to
where
DV.
where
I'm
the
not
tent was
usually
set
real
up
big
here, as you're
on-
seeing from
on,
Eagle 8 HD,
you know,
and where the law
awareness
enforcement
month or whatever,
presence
but
this is
it
file
is
video,
DV
correct?
awareness
I'm
month.
sorry. This is yes. This was from
This is
earlier.
file?
This is from this is looping back
you
from
know, there's the
about
whole purple
approximately,
ribbons going around as far as that goes.
I've lost track of how long have we been on stream here. We've been on stream
So-
for 4 hours and
you've been on
13
longer than me.
minutes.
Inappropriate
No
type
commercial
of
breaks.
hearts
4 hours,
in the
13
chat,
minutes straight
in
here with the
support of
one
Gabby,
break where
in
Eagle 8
support
HD was getting
of-
back up in the
of
air.
victims like Gabby, or in support
so,
of victims that
quite-
could end up like
quite
Gabby.
literally.
So it's very, very important
a
that we bring
multi-hour
awareness to this
effort
issue.
here as far as our streaming. We're not going anywhere. We're staying live with
this
the
is what
NWFLA
this is
now all
about.
the way through.
Make no mistake
So
about
we might
that.
take a
This is,
brief break at
you know,
4:30.
based on the body cam footage that we saw, based
not
on
at
the
4:30.
911
Before
calls that
4:30
took place,
to reset for our audience. I think
it
on
is
Facebook,
not
we're going to be resetting for our
uncommon.
audience one more time. Facebook streaming is different from YouTube streaming. So we are.
All right. So you guys are saying that you can't hear me. I'll repeat that because it is important whether you heard me or not. Maybe it was just Roland that couldn't hear me. It is not uncommon, guys. That's the issue here. The issue here is DV, whether we want to admit it or not. Obviously, the issue is murder, but the issue is DV because this is an example of how DV can go too far. Any DV is too far, but to the point to where someone's life ends, it's very, very possible. It's not a light thing. You know, not to trash talk these law enforcement officers that we saw in this body cam footage, but one of them kind of played it down and made it seem like, well, you know, it's just two people that shouldn't be around each other and just whatever. And this happens all the time. But you know, it's important to make this case something that we talk about because of the issue at hand, and the issue at hand is DV. And how far it can actually go. So hopefully this case will bring attention to the issue of DV to the point to where changes are made. Hopefully that body cam footage and the mistakes made by law enforcement in that body cam footage will create a new way of approaching DV calls. Hopefully maybe it'll be a regular thing for law enforcement agencies to have someone who's an expert in DV on call to make assessments and have very, very specific interviews with each party on these calls. And I mean, when someone calls 911, it's a DV issue. Somebody comes out, you know, the police come out, obviously, you know, first responder officers come out, but they need to have, in my personal opinion, they need to have somebody assigned, somebody whose specialty is DV calls, where they sit down each party and give them specific questions to assess whether or not someone is being abusive or not, and then take steps and take steps moving forward. I know we can pause it, Rowan, but because it's live, I'd rather mute it.
It's time until a forensic examination is completed.
I don't want to be behind.
I think that we'll learn a little bit more about the fact that the remains were found in the area of belongings that Brian Laundrie, that were items that were said to belong to Brian Laundrie, and that they can't take any additional questions at this time. But I always say with this story, it's been about the unexpected. Just has a way.
I agree with you,
just coming out of
Thomas.
nowhere and completely blindsiding everybody.
Ever since when we went over that body cam footage, one big issue that really bothered me was the fact that that was that detail was, it seemed to have been forgotten about. It seemed to have been completely and totally just dismissed. I would have been focused on that. If someone grabs someone else's face firmly enough to where it leaves scratch marks on their face, that is an act of aggression. That is not defense. That is an act of aggression where you are trying to hurt that person. I don't care what you say. So I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, well, but since she said since she says that she was the aggressor and she attacked him first, I'm not just going to take her word for it. I'm going to want to investigate. In theory, if I'm a police officer, I'm going to want to investigate. Is she just saying this in order to, is she saying it out of fear of retaliation from him? This should have been looked into more extensively. It should have absolutely been looked into more extensively. And it's just, it's heartbreaking as far as that goes. Like I said, if there was somebody in law enforcement whose position was simply DV, that's their specialty, and they come out there, they say, okay, we've got an issue. They start asking questions. They separate the two people and they ask them questions individually. Then you say, okay, I'm going to call out a DV specialist to look into this a little further and ask you guys questions. Someone who's trained, hopefully somebody who's a mental health professional in some way, shape, or form, who specializes in DV and also happens to be a law enforcement officer and trained in law enforcement. Someone deputized in some way, shape, or form. I think that would be extremely. I think that would make a big difference. I honestly do. And I think that could have, if that were the case, that could have saved Gabby's life. I truly, honestly believe that.
It's just interesting that today it could be the day that final piece is sort of revealed. Not necessarily the final piece, but one of the final pieces.
Go back to any stream that we have done in recent weeks, and people asking, JB, is he in Mexico? JB is in Canada. Why are they searching the reserve? Why are there been potentially millions of dollars or $1 million+ whatever the amount will end up being, the bill for the search? Why has there been so much taxpayer money committed to searching here when clearly people are saying they're not finding anything? Why are they committed to the search here? And I'm on record saying over and over and over again, you have to have a certain level of confidence, a high level of confidence with the FBI, because they likely have information that the public doesn't have, that leads them to be committing that much attention and be putting that many resources here at the Carlton Reserve. And here we are. So I'd be very curious to hear from those people that would email me or not even email me, but direct message me on my Instagram or on Facebook, people that were just so passionately convinced that he wasn't here. And and I said, no, you have to listen. There's a process, and there's a reason that they're looking here. Like
sometimes, Rowan.
I would just be very curious to what those people are saying today.
And I'm a cost guy. I think government spends too much money, or they don't spend it efficiently.
That's
I've done
your
many
thing.
stories. What?
That's kind of your thing.
Well, it is, and I've always, you know, as I am privately, and I am as a taxpayer, and I am as a journalist, and I like those stories are important.
This guy's making a good
that's
point.
our money. That's our money that's being spent. So I get those questions. However, there was an explanation about this search early on, and it kind of makes a lot of sense that the officers out there
also,
were on
keep
the
in mind, guys, when we're faced with the question of why didn't law enforcement do this and why didn't law enforcement do that, the answer to 99 out of 100 questions is what, folks? Money. Okay, it's just everything's all about budget, you know, and it all depends on what the priority is of the person that's in charge. It all depends on what they prioritize is, you know, as far as budgeting goes. So you have to keep that in mind. That is always a factor. Not everybody is like us where they're like, oh, well, you know, at any cost, get justice. That's not real life. It just doesn't work that way. Everything has a budget and everything has to be run more or less like a business. It's sad. It's sad when that happens.
What we pay them to do, and I would find it hard to complain about that particular cost, even though that is what I do, is look for misspent money. So
that's your beat here on
this is
News
a great
Channel
shot.
8.
I love that somebody actually
it's filed, but it's a great shot of
it's hours.
the officers,
It's a couple of hours old here.
But still, they're right near the tent. You can see where they're looking.
It's the best vantage point that we have had, peeking
really good,
through these
actually,
trees.
Yeah.
And so let me explain the strategy here, folks. YouTube, again, this is rinse and repeat. YouTube, we're not going anywhere.
As long as it's tasteful.
YouTube, we're going to be live with the on stream. We're going to take a 5-minute break here in about 10 minutes.
Sometimes we need to laugh, man. It's just how this is.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
You know, sometimes
just to step
we
away
need
to
find the
reset
humor in
here.
things.
An opportunity to drink some
completely
water, use the
get
facilities, do what we have to do here.
And luckily,
because we've
we
been
have
streaming
somebody
nonstop.
like Brian Laundrie
Now commercial break now for
focus our humor on
4.5 hours. Let's get an update now. We've been streaming now for 4 hours and 24 minutes.
It's just that simple.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We are going to be ending the Facebook stream. Facebook, and I have a better idea now as
Danielle,
far as how to describe this for our audience, but Facebook is more intermittent streaming, while YouTube is.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for covering this, Will. Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for bringing this support. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Brian is absolutely fair game. Brian is 100% fair game, even if he unalived himself. As somebody, and let me discuss this too, because you guys know me. Most everybody here are my regular people and have been subscribed to me for a long time. In the issue of unaliving, you guys, a lot of you know that I struggle with depression and anxiety. I'm nowhere near the place that I am anymore, thanks to the decisions that I started to make. That's where the glare came from. I focus on these things, on these principles in that acronym, as best as I can, and it helps me manage my depression and anxiety without medication. And it's, I'm very proud of that. Now, that's may not work for everyone. I'm not saying that it would. I'm not saying it's a perfect cure. It's a cure for it, because it's definitely not, because I still struggle with it every day. But make no mistake that if Brian Laundrie unalived himself, if that is the case, I do not I do not feel sorry for him. I do not lump him in the same category as people like myself or like you. If you struggle with depression and anxiety, and you have a hard time finding things that help you keep everything together so that you can deal with everyday life, it's definitely not. I don't put him under that category. In his case, I would consider him to be simply a coward. Nothing better than that. I would not consider him to be a victim of mental illness. Nothing to that, nothing to that effect, honestly. I find him to be a coward who took what he considered to be the easy way out from having to take accountability for his actions and face consequences. And I blame his family for enabling him. Absolutely. Is he a victim of bad parenting? Probably. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to count on it. Is he a victim of bad parenting? Sure. I'll take that too.
Audience in this one particular Facebook stream, Becky Lunsford, #AJB. So chances are he's been in there for a while if this is his remains. And yes to Becky, that there is a chance that he has been in here for a while if this is in fact his remains. Does this mean that he was wandering here for weeks and weeks and weeks before something occurred?
True. If that's true, that is just
we don't know the time of death. We don't even know that the remains belong to Brian Laundrie yet. But it's not as if
Danielle,
that
it was
Brian
never
Laundrie
stated
left
that
the
he
Carlton
grabbed
Reserve,
her neck by her.
Had a fun weekend in Miami.
Maybe
and then
one of the
returned to Carlton
911
Reserve.
callers said so. I'm not sure
we
if
don't
that's
know that.
100% true, but as
well,
far as
I think that we can say
he
that.
allegedly grabbed her face and left marks on her
I will tell you this, though.
not her
I
neck.
saw some many experts, and this
that's
story's
not
been
to
done by.
downplay
We did it. I
what you're
think
saying
Allison
here, because I
Allison
do
Henning
agree
did
with
it.
you. Let me elaborate
I've seen
on that too,
other,
because I totally agree with the statement that if that's true and he did that, he grabbed her face, I can completely and totally see him strangling her or throttling her, as the autopsy report stated. So one thing, I remember even seeing, so I am agreeing with you, Danielle, because when I was looking at that, when I was talking about that, and when going over the body cam footage, I was of the opinion 100% that at that point, and the autopsy report had not been released yet, I believe that she was strangled based on that. That made me believe that. And of course, it was either strangulation or blunt force trauma, but I believe strangulation over blunt force trauma more than anything, simply because of that fact that she claimed that he grabbed her face hard enough to leave marks. So
Look at that.
Yeah, see, there's
right
there's
there.
the mic stand.
That's the mic stand that we were talking about. This is how now media comes together.
There's a little plastic. This is new. I haven't seen this anyplace else. It's a little piece of plexiglass or PVC. It's got little holes in it, and it'll fit multiple microphones. I've seen this only here in Florida. I think I was told, a photographer invented it. Somebody told me that. But yeah, there you go. You have, how many mics you have? I think you can fit 16. So there you have it.
There will be some competition for getting a prominent spot, and it's this is a little behind the scenes of what goes on before the mass audience press conference gets underway. So we'll be live here, everybody, on WFLA now but really before 4:30. And we're
I don't know. I haven't heard that
anywhere. On WFLA.com. The WFLA app. We're staying live on YouTube. To our YouTube audience, hello there. Thanks for spending time with us this Wednesday afternoon. We really appreciate you joining us. I'll just kind of give a shout out, even though that there are landmines as far as YouTube names. I'll just give some comment, some shout outs to some users here specifically on YouTube, just to say hello to our YouTube audience. Cynthia May is joining us. Philip Smith. Let's see here. Dimples. The
I'm either going to log off
on
for a little
YouTube
bit and then
are quite
log
different
back
than the
on.
ones
I'm
you would find
definitely
on
the
Facebook.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Sam Balti. They're just coming in so fast. Alice Boyce. Michael Jones. Michael Marsh. Hello to our YouTube audience. And then to our Facebook
Yes,
audience,
Mad Marsha, thank you for that. Mad
hello
Marsha is
to our
saying something
Facebook
that I
Live
completely
audience.
agree with, and I
Tom,
can't,
Krista, Rebecca
can't express
Page,
enough.
or excuse me, Rebecca, yes, Rebecca
She is
Page,
saying
Donna Cano, Nancy.
she get loyalty to a friend, but if you see your friend being abused, be disloyal, tell a parent, or call the DV hotline, or or call the police, report it, do whatever you have to, because it could save your friend's life. You know, I get some things in relationships, you know, it's none of our business. I get that, you know, so whatever's going on, I'm a big fan of people staying out of my personal business. But if you honestly believe that my life is in danger and you have a logical reason to believe that, by all means, don't worry about whether or not I'm going to be mad at you. You know, do whatever you can that you have to save my life. You know, if you think that you know, if you think that I'm going too far with substances to the point to where you're seeing my life deteriorate completely, then yeah, absolutely, stage an intervention, tell somebody that loves me, you know, show your concern. Absolutely, that's your responsibility as somebody who actually cares and values my life, because it's very possible to value somebody that you care about's life more than they value their own. It's very possible that to happen. What's wrong, Panda Lady? What's wrong, Panda Lady? It's okay. And you can report anonymously. Absolutely. You can absolutely do that. So it's really, really important, man. It's really, really important that we, you know, because think about it, guys. If your focus, if your concern, this person might get mad at me, right? Let's think about that. This person might get mad at me. If that's your thought, then you're being selfish. You're worried about you. Are you not? Can that be argued with, really? If your concern is this person might get mad at me or this person might end their friendship with me, then that is all about you. That's not about your friend or loved one, whoever they may be. Part of practicing self-awareness is figuring out whether or not your actions are in your best interests or in the best interest of your immediate environment, and those in it. That's really important differentiation to make. You know, and the thing is it's okay to focus on your immediate environment, because that in turn is going to affect you. How you deal with your immediate environment, how careless you are, can very much affect you negatively. But if you're focused on positive things and trying to focus on improving your immediate environment, that in turn, scientifically, in my opinion, is going to come back on you in a positive. And I'm not talking about karma or anything like that. I'm just talking about effect. I'm talking about basic cause and effect. If you're trying to focus on improving your personal immediate environment, then there's no way that that's not going to reflect positively on you in the ultimate long run. All right, guys, I'm going to log off. I'm going to take 15, and then I'm going to log back on to cover the conference, okay? I'm going to do a separate live for that. All right, guys? So I will see you guys in a bit. We will be doing this again very, very soon.